Hello and welcome to the Chengdu Gaming Podcast. I am joined here with...
You probably want to just move this up a little bit. Just have it pointed right. Son of a bitch. All right.
Hello and welcome to the Chengdu Gaming Podcast. I am joined here with Charlie.
I'm Charlie.
Yeah, and I am Austin, and we are going to be talking about Zelda today. Specifically, Zelda Breath of the Wild, but we're going to be touching upon other games in the series as well, and a little bit about the history.
I think we're a little bit late on talking about Breath of the Wild because it's been a much discussed topic over the last 2 months. I think the game was released in March along with the Nintendo Switch, which has been much discussed as well. But I had not played Breath of the Wild until just a couple days ago until you got it. And because the Switch is not officially released in China, and neither is the Wii U or the Wii or almost anything Nintendo, it seems like, I have not seen Zelda Breath of the Wild around me. I haven't actually seen a Switch yet.
I've seen it at Computer City, but I've not been able to locate a copy of Breath of the Wild for the Wii U, which is why it's taken so long. It came out on March 3rd specifically. So it's been, about 3 months?
Almost 3 months, yeah. So, but it's kind of like Pokemon Go. I remember reading articles about that several times a week and not being able to play it in China.
That was like the most discussed topic in the gaming group for a few weeks. Have you played it? Can you get it on your phone?
Yes.
The rumors of someone
here, read this guide on like how to hack Pokemon Go and how to play it. And there's like all these GPS hacks. I remember trying that. Hilarious. And there were people in the group who were like, it works. Just follow this link. I'm like, it doesn't work. It tricks the phone into thinking you're in San Francisco. Like, it doesn't work at all. You can't go to locations in China and find like Pokeballs or whatever, however all that stuff works.
Yeah.
So anyway, China is frequently cut off from Nintendo happenings, and kind of the case with Zelda. And Austin recently got Breath of the Wild on his Wii U, and we played it, and I thought it would be fun to talk about this game in particular and the history of Zelda. One thing that it was officially released were the Uniqlo Nintendo partnership t-shirts, which were widely promoted in China and I think really popular. I saw someone wearing them.
Yeah, I got
within
students.
Within 1 day of them being released in China, I saw them like out in the streets. I thought that was pretty quick. And among the Nintendo shirts is one or more Zelda shirts.
Yeah, there's a few Zelda. There's Metroid, Donkey Kong, Mario, of course. Pretty cool.
Yeah, considering people didn't grow up with Zelda, I don't think.
I mean, Mario's widely recognized all over the world.
Right.
People pick up on just, I hum the theme song and they're like, oh, I know.
Yes.
But, I don't know many people that know Zelda. Now,
Mario's like blue jeans. You can't keep him out. Yeah. He's going everywhere, whether it's legally licensed or not.
When I posted my a picture of me playing the game the night I got it on my Moments, the only person that recognized what it was a Chinese person. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They had some, they were talking about how great this game was and how much they really enjoyed it. So
bizarre. I wonder how they got it or what.
They got it for the Switch. So for whatever reason, they picked up a Switch, an obscure thing for a Chinese person to do, I feel.
So you talked about Zelda on a previous podcast, which was our favorite NES games podcast.
Right. Touched upon the first Zelda.
Right. So the first Zelda, don't need to go into too much detail on that. For anyone who's listening to this, you can go back and check out that podcast because that goes in a little bit more in depth on that particular game. But for anyone unclear, Zelda is a series created by Shigeru Miyamoto of action-adventure kind of puzzle games, which originally came out in 1986 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And the series centers around the protagonist named Link, who is saving Princess Zelda and the Kingdom of Hyrule from the villain who's named Ganon. And a lot of the things in this game have become famous outside of the video game enthusiast scene. And some of those things are like the Triforce.
Yeah.
Triforce in particular. See a lot of Triforce tattoos It is a well-known symbol, and depictions of the Triforce you can see probably everywhere around the Earth. I think it's been so influential. So there have been 19 Zelda games in total, and they've been released on every one of Nintendo's major game consoles. And as of 2016, there have been 75 million copies of Zelda games sold around the Earth. So it's been one of the most popular game series of all time.
Breath of the Wild is shaping up to be the highest selling Zelda game to date.
Really? Is that so?
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be.
Wow. Do you know what the sales numbers look like now?
I'm not sure what the exact sales numbers are. I know that it oversold Horizon Zero Dawn in Japan alone by over 200,000.
You know, that makes a lot of sense, though, because unlike almost every other Zelda game, Breath of the Wild is released on 2 different consoles.
Yeah, that's true.
I can't think of any other Zelda game which had that.
Yeah, it's also, but its sales tied into the Switch sales heavily. I mean, I think
there were more sales of Breath of the Wild than there were of the Switch itself. Well, on Switch, there were more sales of the Switch version of Breath of the Wild than there were of Switch consoles.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right, it doesn't make sense. It's actually been a widely cited fact.
What are people doing?
I think some of it is collectors, and I'm not sure what the other rationalizations for that are. But sales of Breath of the Wild have been massive on the Switch. I mean, the Breath of the Wild really has sold the Switch.
Yeah, there's a special edition for the Switch version as well as a Master Edition or something like that. And the geek in me kind of wants the Master Edition, even though I don't have a Switch. So dark. Yeah, pretty dorky. I'm told though.
So tell me a little bit about your history with Zelda. What's your favorite Zelda game of all time? Let's start with that.
Breath of the Wild.
Really? You haven't even finished it yet. You can't.
Yeah, I know.
It seems early.
I don't know. I don't know, man. That's tough.
Easy for me. Link to the Past. Link to the Past. So
I might go with Ocarina of Time. Just because it was the series' first venture into 3D, and it did it so well.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when I recently gave away a Steam key on a subreddit for giving away Steam keys, random acts of gaming. And I gave away a Steam key for The Witness, which is a really good game. And I asked that everyone who wanted the Steam key to share their favorite game of all time. And I thought it'd be interesting to have people who are definite, kind of hardcore gamers select only one game, because it's kind of a difficult practice. It's kind of like choosing your favorite album or your favorite artist. Everybody has a lot of games they like and a lot of artists they like and a lot of albums they like. So choosing just one is kind of difficult. And I kept track of what everyone chose and which games were most popular. And I thought it'd be instructive to find out which games people selected. And a lot of Zelda games were picked. The most popular
Philips CDI games.
Do you know what that's called? What that one's called?
No, those are widely disregarded as not part of the official canon. Even Nintendo kind of disowned that.
Widely disregarded. I like the concept of that. It's like, I disregard it. It doesn't exist to me.
Yeah, that's Nintendo's policy on it, basically, too, which is funny.
So 3 people selected A Link to the Past in choosing their favorite game, and I thought that was interesting. I wasn't looking for A Link to the Past, for my favorite Zelda game to be validated in any way, but I was surprised at how often it was picked, since the game came out in 1992 on Super Nintendo, so this would be 25 years. And also selected 3 times was Ocarina of Time.
So good. I love Ocarina of Time. And the music in that game, still is stuck in my head.
One person selected Breath of the Wild, too, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So.
Favorite game of all time, Breath of the Wild. Pretty neat. I recently read a little bit about the origin of the Zelda series. I'm not sure if you've read this, but the Zelda series was inspired by Shigeru Miyamoto's explorations as a young boy in the hillsides, forests, and caves surrounding his hometown of Sonobe, Japan.
Yeah, I thought I touched on that in the Zelda podcast.
He described in particular going inside a cave that was within a forest near his house with a lantern. Did you read about this?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. I just think his idea of trying to capture that sense of exploration and put it into a game was really cool. And I think the first Zelda captured that so well. And after that, the series strayed away from that a lot. The games became increasingly more linear.
How so?
Ooh, I mean, like I just mentioned, Ocarina of Time being like one of my favorite. That one stands out to me very well. You basically have to go about the dungeons in a specific order to get certain items to progress through the following, the next dungeon and the next dungeon until you're ready to take on Ganon. And the first Zelda did not hold your hand in any way or guide you in any direction, really. It was about exploration. And you really feel that in Breath of the Wild. It doesn't really hold your hand at all.
So, yeah, tell me about your experience with Breath of the Wild. So, you had wanted to get the game for a long time. First of all, let's start with, you had tried to crack your Wii U, right?
Yeah.
Explain that whole process. Because you can't just go to a store and buy Breath of the Wild here.
I don't know. I kind of gave up with cracking it just because there were like minor questions that I had about cracking it. And I didn't want to risk bricking it just due to like making the assumption that like this slight difference is okay. And
what's involved with cracking a Wii U? Cracking it allows it to run games which are copied to where? To the hard drive?
Yeah, or you can like also run, it like makes it so that you can make it region free. You can play games from other regions.
Yeah, the region locking on Wii U. Man, what a bitch.
Stupid.
Yeah, so explain that. So you bought the Wii U, which you have from a British person, right?
Yeah. And getting British games here is kind of a bitch. So
it can't run American games.
Cannot run
Japanese
American games. If I go back to America and decide, which I will be, you and I are both going back in a couple months, I can't buy a bunch of Wii U games while I'm there. That would be cool to just buy some secondhand games while we're there, but that's not an option.
Yeah.
So I wanted to crack it and just download the games that I have not had a chance to play yet. I figured that would be easier and I'd be a quick and easy way to play Breath of the Wild and save some money. And just like in the very beginning of that, ran into some small difficulties just with like file conversion and things like that. And basically just did not want to brick my Wii U before I played Breath of the Wild. So I went ahead and tried to like locate a British copy or a European copy of it to order. Took me a minute. I had a friend order it for me. And
so you got it. And what's it been like?
Well, so far, every time I've played, it's been late. I've been kind of fucked up. So it's been a lot of aimless wandering. And the game encourages just like doing whatever you want. I brought it over here the night I got it. You remember us exploring, trying to get to a shrine on top of a mountain and taking a while before we realized it's too cold up there. We had to figure out how to raise our body temperature.
Right. So what's the premise of the game?
So the premise of the game is that you are Link, as you are in pretty much every game. And you are actually the same Link from 100 years previously that had been fighting Ganon and had been basically killed. And you were resurrected in this shrine. You wake up in the beginning of the game, and the whole game is like about you remembering who you are and what the battle is and trying to like remember how to fight Ganon to go back and defeat him. And this whole time, like, Zelda is apparently... I don't really understand what's going on with Zelda yet, but she's, like, all alone at the castle fighting Ganon, and I have to go help her. But I don't know how she's been there for 100 years.
Right, yeah. Does it really make sense? Does it really matter that it doesn't make sense? Every version of Zelda, first of all, is like a different Zelda. You're a different incarnation of Zelda in almost every one. The circumstances are different, but basically, you're Link, you're saving Zelda, and Ganon is the villain.
Well, Majora's Mask is like one of the only Zeldas where you play as, without a doubt, you play as one of the same Links.
What do you mean?
Majora's Mask, you play as the same Link, the young Link, in Ocarina of Time. And it's in a parallel universe.
Interesting. Yeah, the concept of parallel universes and the Dark World was introduced in Link to the Past.
Yeah.
And also the Master Sword was introduced in Link to the Past. Is that in Breath of the Wild? Do you know?
I think you can find it in the very beginning of the game, but it's like kind of like whatever. You can also get Epona, Link's trusty horse, in quite a few of the games, but you have to get her through an amiibo, whatever the fuck those little dumbass figurine. Yeah, those stupid things.
You need a figurine to get the horse?
Yeah, and scan it into the game. That's ridiculous. Anyways, you can catch horses in the game. That's what I was trying to do last night. It was my first time. I went and caught a wild horse last week, only to find out that like you can like develop a bond with it, and then you lose it unless you bring it to a place, what the hell a stable. You bring it to a stable and you have to register it and get a saddle and all this stuff. And then the horse will come when you whistle for your horse and stuff, and you develop a bond with it. Much faster way to get around. I also remember seeing in the E3 teaser stuff about how way back when, what was this, E3 2016?
I think it was playable. 2014 was when it was announced, I think.
But when they had the playable, 2013 is when it was announced.
Quite a long time ago.
Yeah, but the playable version was at E3 last year. It was about a year ago. E3 is coming up soon, right?
Yes.
So I remember seeing a lot of people riding around on their shield. And I was like, well, I got a shield. How the hell do I do that? And the game doesn't really teach you how to do it. It's something you just have to figure out. So I had to go online to look up how you ride your shield. And then the game gave me a tutorial on how to do it after I did it.
Huh. That's strange.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that maybe I would have to come into contact with someone in the game to have them teach me. There are a lot of side quests or little things that just are basically introduced to you as you discover them in the game. So, for example, we had to cook that food, but it's not like the game told us, go cook these spicy hot peppers.
Yeah, you're right.
That was just something that I was like, I think you can cook spicy peppers to raise your body temperature. And we were like, how do you cook? And we had seen in the menu that you could hold items. So we tried holding a bunch of items and doing it. And sure enough, it worked. And that's how we got through that cold bit. So the whole game is filled with very, very small subtleties. Link will, even if you turn off the HUD, you'll still know Link is suffering from the cold because he'll shiver. Or when it gets hot, he'll start sweating and things like that. There's little interactions and small details that people do in the game to give clues and allude to what sort of things are going on behind the scenes, and where you can bring you to discover new things.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of space for creativity in how to solve problems. And from what I've read, there are a lot of obstacles that you encounter in the game which you can bypass through a number of different means.
I mean,
you can take a traditional kind of, you can just defeat an enemy in your way, or you can also do a bunch of other things which people might not often think to do to overcome obstacles.
Well, a big part of the game is the game's physics engine, which it's using a modified version of the Havoc physics engine.
Oh, really? That's the one that Grand Theft Auto used, right?
Correct. That many games have used. It's probably the widest used, pre-built physics engine.
So that's like a ragdoll engine, right?
I mean, it's not just it's many different aspects.
It's if you can punch someone in GTA and they fall down the stairs, then it's that's the Havoc engine.
Nah, that was Euphoria previously, and now Grand Theft Auto uses Rage.
Really?
Yeah.
Which version? Euphoria is which one? Which GTA?
Euphoria. I mean, GTA 4 and Red Dead use Havoc and Euphoria, and this whole Rage thing, which is Rockstar's proprietary engine that they use for Red Dead, GTA, and Max Payne.
Okay. Yeah. So what are the physics like in the game?
In Grand Theft Auto?
No, in Breath of the Wild.
So it's like I just found a balloon in an octo. What do you call it? The octo dad octo. No octo. Not octo dad. The octo whatever those like weird octopus things in the game are. I don't know. They've been in various Zelda games. I forget their name, but I got like part of it when I killed one that I can use to build into a balloon and attach to objects. So I can like float an object and use a like this fan, like blow it towards them, and then like use my arrow to pop. Like let's say it's an explosive barrel, and I blow it like out towards them, and I pop the balloon so the barrel falls on them and explodes.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, you can like push. One of the first things I did was I pushed a boulder down a hill into a group of like bokoblins or whatever the weird little goblin dudes are called, and killed them all that way.
Okay, so this is like fairly standard physics engine stuff. Nothing
yeah, it's
like
pretty standard physics engine stuff, but I mean, it does everything it does really well. Like, you remember seeing me last night being like, check this out, and then just like dropping from a great height from my paraglider, trying to land on my shield to ride it, and then just like
there were like
from the fall.
It's a pretty entertaining game to watch, I gotta say, especially with the way that you play it. Where you're like, hey, check this out. This is going to be awesome. And then you just like kill yourself.
Totally eat shit.
Kill yourself in like some dramatic way. Whoops. It doesn't look like an easy game.
That's okay. So one of the things I'd like to touch upon, like some issues. One of them is that the game is incredibly challenging. I like this, but some people may find it difficult. So I think Nintendo implemented this save feature system that you've seen at play that I think is a little bit cheap, a little bit too
basically when you die you come back to life just a moment before you died.
Yeah, like basically just before any sign of danger. Basically it's like, oh, if these enemies spotted you, the moment before the enemy spotted you is when you'll spawn back.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that, I don't know, I mean, with the difficulty level, it encourages you to keep playing and everything. I guess you don't have to go through huge areas again to get back to where you're going. But it removes the kind of like in Dark Souls where you play like that's your real life. You are terrified of dying. And in Zelda Breath of the Wild,
none of that at all. You're like, hey, check this out. You just do whatever crazy stunts all the time.
I'm going to do a backflip off of this cliff. No problem.
Yeah. What else? Are there any other flaws to the game?
Frame rate issues.
Yeah. I've noticed that a little bit.
Big time.
That's a little bit concerning not for the Wii U, but for the Switch, because I've seen the same kind of issues.
Because it's a launch title?
Yeah, because the console just came out, and while this game does look great, it's not like the best looking game technically. So the feeling that it's pushing the limits of the hardware is a little bit concerning.
I think that it's got a lot of things going on that, I mean, the game, like I think you said last night that the real star of the game is possibly the world.
Yes.
And like there are a lot of subtle things going on all around you that as you play, you realize that, I mean, I don't think that other games really necessarily have the same. So they've got like dynamic wind going on. All of the like the grass and leaves and everything will move and also be cut down by like you like moving too fast through them or something, or
sure.
Like
those all seem like fairly standard things in 2017.
There's like a lot more animals around on screen at any time than you realize. Like there are little like lizards crawling around. There's like, so basically it's like dealing with a lot more enemies, animals, and other things going on screen at any given time than you actually can see or realize are being like rendered on screen.
I hear you, and it looks pretty damn good, but it's definitely not the kind of thing that I'm looking at. And I'm like, I can't believe this is technically possible in 2017. I feel that there are other games which push the technical borders
like Horizon
further.
Zero Dawn or Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, and those, for example, are on hardware that's 4 years old.
Yeah.
And they don't have frame rate issues.
Well, Horizon Zero Dawn, I heard, had some frame rate issues.
I haven't played it, but...
I haven't played it either. But I don't think the same frame rate issues that Zelda has. I mean, it's like...
it's understandable on the Wii U, because the Wii U was widely said to be underpowered even when it was released.
Yeah, I mean,
which was like 5-6 years ago.
I don't think it like really, really is so bad. I mean, it's occasionally like in some parts of the game, like when you go into Kakariko Village or whatever, some of the villages have like a lot of wind, and they like for whatever reason they decided to like do all these like fancy little effects or whatever that maybe they didn't need, and
right.
I feel like it's still really good, but it's kind of like I notice it, and it like I would prefer that there weren't frame rate issues. Obviously,
sure. I agree. It's not a huge issue, but it is something that you notice, I think.
Yeah, and it's not like it's like it's not like it's a first-person Twitch shooter or something where you're like,
true.
Like where if there's
that can like break the game.
Yeah. But I mean, that's basically the only issue. I have to say, maybe like the first after I got past the tutorial, like I wouldn't even say the tutorial. The first part of the game, it took me a moment to kind of get into the flow of the game. I felt like the world is a bit daunting in like its size and doesn't tell you really what to do.
That's exactly how I felt in Witcher 3.
Yeah. So
I'm just like, this is like so big. I feel so lost in this.
Yeah, and you kind of have to like define what you're like. Yesterday, I was like, all right, I figured out how to get money, and I sold some things, and I was like, I'm gonna go register a horse. And that's what I did. And I went out, and it took me a while to figure out how to do that.
Horse registration seems like such a bizarre mechanic to include in Zelda. Are you paying taxes? Are you paying
I've got horsey now.
Are you paying taxes on like your abode in Zelda? It's like horse registration seems like an unfun.
Yeah, but you can like
government technicality.
Basically, what it is, it's like a garage in GTA. So I can like board my horses there.
Right. I find it interesting that they would choose to call this mechanic horse registration as opposed to something which is more fun than registering a horse.
Yeah, well, what the hell would you call it, man? Like, what would you call it?
Board your horse boarding. I don't know. Just stable keep. I don't know. But I'm like, horse registration? It doesn't sound...
Yeah. Oh, so you remember...
How much does it cost to feed your horse, by the way?
You don't feed him.
What happens if your horse gets sick?
He dies. No, but you do actually have to worry about a bond with your horse. They have different temperaments depending on which horse you get, and you can soothe the horse and take care of it, and they will be more attached to you and be perform better and listen to you better.
Nice. Those are good Zelda horse facts.
Yeah, I'm all about the horses. So
awesome. So I don't have a Wii U and I don't have a Switch, and I'm guessing that most of the people who are listening to this don't. And there is good news. If you have a gaming PC, you can now run Breath of the Wild pretty well in Cemu, which is the Wii U emulator.
Actually, the Zelda release, they pushed hard on this game. This has been one of the number one, I think, pushes for developing the Cemu up there. I almost made it all the way through without doing that this week. The Cemu developer.
Well, Cemu has been in development for quite a while. It's been emulating Wii U games.
They pushed it hard for getting this game running, within weeks.
This game was a highly anticipated game. This is the last Wii U game.
This is the last Nintendo developed and published game for the Wii U.
Right. So Cemu certainly wants to make sure that this game runs well. And when Zelda was released, it didn't really run at all in Cemu. They could just load the title screen and nothing else worked.
Well, I mean, that's all you really need.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful title screen.
But Breath of the Wild has become the benchmark for how well Cemu works. So over the last 2 months, 3 months actually, Cemu has been updated pretty much twice a week since that time, and they've received a huge amount of funding. I think they're getting over $10,000 a month just through their Patreon account. So they have lots and lots of donors who are contributing money to the development of Cemu. And it is making incredible progress. And upon the release of Zelda, I think a lot of people were saying in a couple months it'll be able to run Zelda Breath of the Wild really well. And it's at that point now. The most recent release as of this recording is 1.8.0. And I was watching a YouTube clip. It runs the game and looks better than the Wii U or Switch version because it runs at 4K. And you can check that out. Obviously, you're breaking all kinds of laws by doing that. But if you're like us, you live in China, you can't buy the game anyway, you might want to consider looking into that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely worth checking out whatever way you can.
Yeah, and if you feel bad because of emulating Breath of the Wild, you may find some comfort in the fact that Nintendo share prices are at a 7-year high after the success of the Switch, which is based in large part to Breath of the Wild. So Nintendo seems to be doing really well with Pokemon Go and Breath of the Wild and the success of the Switch. So there's a lot of encouraging things. And there's a new Zelda game coming out this year on smartphones. And this is the point in the podcast where our recorder ran out of batteries. But fortunately, we were pretty much at the end of our conversation anyway, having just hit the 30-minute mark. Thank you for listening to the podcast. As usual, you can find more on our website at chengdugaming.com. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher. And we will catch you next time.